the whole vaccine situation, a certain compound called GC, macrophage activating factor, which apparently every single one of these doctors, that's the correlation. They were all studying this one molecule that's a derivative of bovine colostrum and apparently can be derived from mother's breast milk, not microwave soy formula that's in a plastic bottle. No, mother's breast milk. Right? Imagine that. It basically uploads immunological information that fortifies you, right? Anyways, it's something to look into, entertain yourself with. So let's pull that slide up real quick. Okay, cool. This is it. So this is the thing. So when we're born, this is essentially what happens. You got this beautiful picture, beautiful little baby, right? We all love babies. When you're born, you start out here and you start to make your ascension up, right? You are literally more levitational. You have levitational compounds circulating through your physiology, right? And that's how your body constructs itself and creates its constructed formation we call like an adult, right? So you're upward, you're moving up, you're ascending up towards the sun, however you want to think about it, right? Then you become a structured human being. Now, as you go through the timeline, the human de-evolution timeline, you start to notice this interesting decline. At some point in the timeline, you go from upright, vibrant, to you start to break down, crust over, and start to descend into the ground. Right, back into the geology of the earth, right? That makes sense. And that's kind of what I'm talking about with this whole calcification issue. This is a great example, is that one example is basically what this tells me, three things. And this is a great way to get me back on track. Three things. Water, that person's hydrated. Every single disease, every single degeneration is a dehydration. That's the most obvious thing ever. If you look at the cell, the physiology of the cell, it all leads back to this. The more hydrated, your cells are like water bags. They store water, and there's like 10 layers of water molecules in this whole thing. But as your blood pH becomes more acidic, these organisms start to root themselves in the body and take you over like a remote control and cause you to have cravings that you may have no need for, but you're not feeding you in this situation, right? Important idea. Then this kind of picture starts to happen. Also, the other two things here, mineralization enzymes. And then, great, beautiful. Yeah, these are all foods that are very specific for the skin, the health of your skin. Cucumbers. Let's jump into enzymes real quick. I'm going to come back to the mineral part, but this is just kind of leading the thought of consciousness here. Let's bring it back there if we can. Cucumbers are a great example. Now, enzymes. Who here has heard about enzymes at all? Okay, most people have heard about like digestive enzymes, which is great. Wonderful. But that's not really this whole story. What's interesting, I think I skipped this part about cancer therapy. Dr. Nick Gonzalez, before he passed away, is that he had the most, and I think it's still the most successful alternative clinic for pancreatic cancer recovery. They have the best track record of any clinic in the world. You know what his therapy is? His main therapy? Raw foods, water, and then supplementally 70 to 120 enzymes a day, depending on the severity of the condition. Sometimes 300 a day. I mean, I got people I work with. I do private coaching and consulting with people. I got people who are like, my naturopath is worried about, like the biofilm breaking down too quickly, or, I saw some crazy article, some lady, some doctor, wrote about like leaky gut. It's like, oh yeah, the enzymes are, you got to be careful with digestive enzymes because they can start to thin the mucosal layer of the digestive tract. I'm like, That is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, me alone, I've done high amounts of supplemental enzymes, not digestive enzymes. I'm talking about powerful, the proteolytic powerful enzymes that break up scar tissue, that break down the protein encasement that surrounds cancer cells. What is a cancer essentially? Cancer, for the most part, is basically a viral and fungal infection. Or another way of saying it is that it's like a virus that feeds like a fungus. A virus basically pirates onto the nucleus of the cell. The nucleus is the reproductive portion of your cell. It pirates it, reprograms it, and then it starts to reproduce these mutated abnormalities called cancer cells, and it metastasizes, creates a systemic progression until that cancer cell becomes more, or you become more of that than you are of you. You know, stage 4 cancer and all that kind of thing, right? That's really fascinating to me. This is what they're doing, enzyme supplementation, proteolytic, protein-based enzymes that break down that protein encasement. Really interesting connection you might be making right now is that biofilms, calcification, cancer. What an interesting connection these things all have together. They hide behind layers of protein deposits, of calcium phosphate crystals, if you will, in whatever the biofilm is using to shield itself from the immune system. Is that seeping through on any level? One of the primary methods for all of those are enzyme therapy. Let's jump into enzymes really quickly. There's 3 types of enzymes. There's digestive enzymes, which you would use to digest like your food or cooked food, that kind of thing, because the main difference between raw living food and cooked food, the distinction between both is that cooked food is void of all enzymatic activity. There's no storage of enzymes in food that's been cooked from 115 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Beyond that, the protein molecules called enzymes are very heat volatile, so they start to volatilize away. They start to get wiped out. Same thing with vitamin C, same thing with tryptophan, an amino acid that forms serotonin. No wonder we have like road rage going on right now. Because everyone has protein excess and they're protein deficient. Right? Just sit with that one for a second. They're not getting the right amino acids that actually form neurotransmitters called brain hormones, right? Anyways, so that's the main distinction there. Now, like digestive enzymes, again, like amylase for breaking down carbohydrates, it's mostly secreted in your mouth, your saliva. Like when you look at food, anyone notice when you look at all this, mostly carbohydrate-based, vegetables, did anyone look at this and start to salivate?
Every day.
That's that amylase starting to produce and starting to prep itself. Digestion doesn't start in the how do they say, like health starts in the colon or some nonsense, or like or in the stomach, something like that. It really starts when you look at food, actually. That's when digestion and metabolism actually starts. If you want to play with fasting, start looking at food and then walk away. You stimulate all that enzymatic activity, but then you don't use it. That's an interesting idea. So then it just somehow recirculates back into the body and gets used for its healing purposes. Now that's the other part of enzymes, is you have food enzymes, which are the enzymes that are encapsulated into the structure of plants, essentially. So this is the big distinction, is that people make the assumption that when you eat raw food, it's going to donate all these enzymes to you to break down food. One of the things with food enzymes in, let's see, this is really interesting. Yeah, these are some actually, like some of these are like really unique, like trypsin, chymotrypsin, peptidases, and yeah, we don't even need to talk about any of that, but it's just really interesting. type of the way that enzymes start to distinct themselves. They're not all the same thing, I guess what I'm saying. But anyways, food enzymes are what are present in plant food. So when you eat food, those enzymes, are used for their own plant's metabolism to pre-digest itself and as a protective mechanism on some level. But then there's certain enzymes in that food that are like coding mechanisms. This is a big thing about enzymes, is that they're not just used to break down food, right? They're actually used to code where that food is going to be delivered, or where certain molecules in that food are going to be distributed into the body. Like cucumbers, for example, have an enzyme called a repsin. And that enzyme tells the body where to deliver that molecule specifically to the kidneys. So cucumbers are very important for kidney health, regenerating kidney. Cucumber juice. If someone has a wiped out kidney, adrenal issues, kidney disease, one of the things we would do is get somebody on cucumber juice, cucumber celery juice. Just that right there. Right? That's a really powerful thing about that aspect of enzymes, is that if you cook away all the enzymes from food, then when you eat all the tons of cooked food and processed food, your body has to manufacture its stored metabolic enzymes to create like a registration effect of where to put that food. Does that make sense? Like, it has to actually re-identify, what am I going to do with this thing? Like, I don't know what, it's like it doesn't have its built-in GPS system. And the metabolic enzymes are of specific note because those are what heals us. How does your body heal a wound? How does your body heal a torn tendon? It's basically a product of enzymatic activity. And Dr. Edward Howell, who was the world's leading enzymologist, and he wrote the book Enzyme Nutrition, Digestive Enzymes, and just really started, he was one of the original proponents of enzyme research. He dedicated 60 years of his life to enzymology. The distillation of his work is that the longer you go in life, the longer you go through the life cycle, the more enzymes you burn up in the body. He came to find out that someone in their 20s has 30 times more salivary enzymes than somebody in their 60s. Really interesting about that too is that they did studies on dogs where they found that dogs that ate a wild, or like their natural raw meat-based diet, right? They're carnivores. That's what they do. They eat their food raw. All animals eat a raw food diet. They don't have